It has hung over Downing Street for 6 months, but now the report into parties here and the nearby Cabinet Office has landed. By the time he went to face MPs, he knew the contents were bad. But were they bad enough to end his career? Sue Gray's investigated 16 events and found evidence of COVID law breaking. Dozens of civil servants have been fined, but she pointed the finger elsewhere, saying many of these events should not have been allowed to happen. It's also the case that some of the more junior civil servants believe their involvement in some of these events was permitted, given the attendance of senior leaders. The senior leadership at the centre, both political and official, must bear responsibility for this culture. Sue Gray also has 9 pictures. This one shows the Prime Minister raising a beer at his birthday party. He and the Chancellor were fined for this event. And there are pictures of a leaving do for Boris Johnson's head of communications. In the Commons, the Prime Minister said he took responsibility, but he also said he had not been aware of what was unfolding.
I have been as surprised and disappointed as anyone else in this House as the revelations have unfolded. And frankly, Mr. Speaker, I have been appalled by some of the behaviour, particularly in the treatment of the security and the cleaning staff.
Among the events examined, here are just 2. On the 18th of June 2020, a karaoke machine was brought to a party in the Cabinet Office by a senior civil servant. One member of staff was sick after drinking too much, and there was a minor altercation between 2 others. And on the night before the Duke of Edinburgh's funeral on the 16th of April 2021, about 20 people ended up in the Downing Street garden. A number drank excessively, a child's swing was broken, and the last person was logged as leaving at 4:20 in the morning. The Prime Minister was not present at either event. And because he'd never been there when things had got out of hand, he said he hadn't misled MPs.
When I came to this House and said, in all sincerity, that the rules and guidance had been followed at all times, it was what I believed to be true.
But it is clear many people knew or suspected at the time they were breaking the rules. Martin Reynolds, who's since left as the Prime Minister's principal private secretary, said in a message, "A complete non-story, but better than them focusing on our drinks, which we seem to have got away with." Back in the Commons, the leader of the opposition had this to say about the Prime Minister's supporters.
The truth is, they set the bar for his conduct lower than a snake's belly. And now they expect the rest of us to congratulate him as he stumbles over it.
And the SNP challenged Tory MPs to demand a vote of no confidence.
If they don't submit a letter, if they don't remove this Prime Minister, how will they ever look at their constituents in the eye ever again?
But few took up that challenge. Here's one that has already called for the Prime Minister to go.
Can we win the general election on this current trajectory? The question I place to the Prime Minister is now, Mr. Speaker, I'm being heckled by my own people. If we cannot work out what we're going to do, then the broad church of the Conservative Party will lose the next general election.
In her conclusion, Sue Gray says many will be dismayed that behaviour of this kind took place on this scale at the heart of government. The public have a right to expect the very highest standards of behaviour in such places, and clearly what happened fell well short of this. This is officially the most fined address for COVID law breaking in Britain, and today's report has detail and examples of what went on here. But tonight, the man who runs the place is not going anywhere.
Andy, there's a lot of detail in this report. What do you think is the most challenging, the worst part for the Prime Minister?
Well, in some ways, Danny, I don't think it is the detail, although that is telling. I think it's the big picture, which is that Boris Johnson was in charge here when the partying culture really got out of control. We have stories of people being sick, of there being an altercation, i.e. a little fight between members of staff, of people leaving at 4 o'clock in the morning, of karaoke machines being brought in. And Sue Gray in her report is clear. She says, well, you know, these offences may have been committed by more junior civil servants. The responsibility for the culture that was allowed to grow up around this between May 2020 and April 2021 lay absolutely with the senior leadership, not just the civil service leadership, but the political leadership. In other words, Boris Johnson. So she is very much saying they are responsible for the culture that was allowed to grow up here. Now, Boris Johnson says basically he never knew that this was all going on, that it was unfolding in the place where he worked and lived, that whenever he was at an event he thought it was a work event and maybe things got out of hand later on. He's sorry, he takes responsibility, but essentially he's saying he never knew that things were getting so bad. I think a lot of people may be surprised that over the course of a year that he didn't quite realise what was happening in the place where he lives and works.
Absolutely. Okay, for now, Andy, thank you very much.